I wanted to give you guys an update on the shooting that happened on New Year's Eve in Istanbul, Turkey, at a nightclub called Reyna. 39 people were killed and over 60 injured. It's heartbreaking. It is also incredibly scary. I've now had a bomb go off in New York next to one of my best friend's house. I've had a bomb go off in a town near my parents' house in New Jersey. I've now had many bombs go off in Istanbul next to people that I care deeply about, family and friends, including this one. I had to check with family and friends to make sure they were all okay and that they weren't at that particular nightclub on New Year's Eve. So this attacker is apparently from ISIS. ISIS is taking credit for it. The guy yelled Allahu Akbar before doing the shooting. He unbelievably got away in the chaos that he created. Turkish authorities are now finally have a picture of him that they're circulating and trying to, and they've done a couple of raids to try to find him yet, but they haven't found him yet. Look, as always when these attacks happen, there's a question of what can we do about it. The right wing thinks that because they are dumber and more violent, that they care more. That's just not true. It's my family members, my friends who are constantly in danger from this stuff, as well as so many of you out there. And you don't have to be right wing, left wing, etc., to have your family members in jeopardy through terrorism. So here's what I mean by dumber and more violent. So they say silly things like, if you just call it radical Islamic terror, it'll get solved. That's so painfully stupid. Don't you think we would? You think we want... Now there's been over a dozen bombings in Turkey, dozens in the last 2 years. In December alone, there was a horrific one in Kayseri, another giant one in Istanbul. In Turkey, it's half ISIS, half PKK and their offshoots. That's a Kurdish terrorist group. And so people in Turkey are devastated by it. I mean, you're concerned about it in America. We have those incidents happen much less frequently than they do in Turkey these days. And it didn't used to happen in Turkey at all. Turkey is not Syria or Iraq. They were not mired in any of these wars and civil wars and all this, right? It's new to Turkey and it's devastating. It's not like people don't want to solve it. So if we thought we could solve it by just saying 3 magic words, yes, you idiots, of course we'd say that. And we do say it, and it doesn't help, okay? So, for example, the Turkish government knows this, or they say this one is definitely ISIS, okay? And it's definitely radical Islamic terror. And, yeah, you say, okay, well, that's the first step. Yes, moron, what is step number 2? Step number 2 is pretty goddamn important to stopping the bombings and the shootings. You just think this is like the Wizard of Oz? You just say something and click your heels and it gets solved? Yeah, that's what I mean by stupid, because it is stupid. That doesn't help at all. Okay, now, number 2, they think, well, we're more violent. We're willing to do more bombings. So that must mean we're tougher on terror and that we're going to be more effective in solving this. Well, hadn't happened yet, as Bush would say. No, your bombings and your violence is what got us into this mess in the first place. So now we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. You bomb ISIS in Syria. If you don't bomb them, well, then what the hell are you doing? Why aren't you doing anything about ISIS? And you're certainly not going to put American ground troops in, right? If you do bomb them, well, we often hit innocent civilians. The Russians hit innocent civilians a lot more, and they don't care at all, apparently, by the way that they're operating. Well, then those civilians get mad and they want to participate in the violence, and they have their own right-wingers saying violence is the answer and we're the tougher ones and we're the ones who can get the Americans, we're the ones who can get the Russians and the West and all that stuff, right? So that cycle of violence has not worked at all. In fact, why do we have ISIS in the first place? The Iraq War. Does anyone with 2 brain cells to rub together think that we would have had ISIS if we hadn't invaded Iraq? Where the hell would they have come from? ISIS came from Iraq. A lot of them are former Iraqi military that once we disbanded the Ba'athis said, oh, okay, I don't have an income anymore and you just handed the government over to the Shiites. Well, I'm Sunni and they're giving me nothing, so I'm going to fight you. And I've got every political and economic reason to, and I'll invent a religious reason to. So you put all that stuff together and you got ISIS. Now you're telling us, oh, I got a great idea. more bombings, more violence, and that'll get rid of ISIS. No, it'll create the next ISIS. Okay, so right now, I've been over this 1,000 times. I think the smart way to fight them is, number one, we need to do a lot more intelligence work. I cannot believe, and I've been saying this for years upon years, I cannot believe we don't know where Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is. That's the leader of ISIS. Do we have a CIA? I know every time I say that, people get upset, like, oh my God, don't you denigrate the wonderful people at the CIA. Where the hell is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi? How can you not figure that out? ISIS is generally a bunch of morons led by a pretty damn smart guy. This Baghdadi guy apparently knows what he's doing, and he apparently has military experience and has taken over vast areas of land. You knock out al-Baghdadi, you're going to be a lot closer to an answer. But yet our incompetent CIA, after all these years, has no idea where al-Baghdadi is. Okay, so that's the immediate, among the things that we have to do immediately. Better intelligence, more targeted strikes against ISIS instead of, just dropping bombs from the sky and hope that they hit the right place. Okay, we've been over that a million times. But I got to say one last thing. It is super important that we not start the next ISIS. And right now, the same idiot neocons are getting back into power. Even though Trump said he didn't want more meddling in the Middle East, well, he's bringing in the same idiots who started the Iraq war, and they are desperate to start a war with Iran. Iran is much, much larger than Iraq. And that will ignite the entire Shia Muslim community all across the world. Whatever you do, do not start a war with Iran. If you rip up that peace treaty we have, they go back to doing their nuclear energy program. We got rid of their nuclear energy program. It's a great deal. Why can you not see rationally? Because, the right-wingers revel in their stupidity. So if we rip up that peace treaty, they go back to doing a nuclear energy program. And we start getting into a conflict with Iran. If you thought that Pandora's box we opened in Iraq was bad, wait till you get a load of the Pandora's box we'd open up in Iran. Don't do it. Don't do it. ISIS will be kids' play next to what we create if we attack Iran. So just because you claim to be tougher and you have these stupid, simple ideas about how to conduct a war on terror, it doesn't mean you're right, and it doesn't mean that you care more or that you want to fight terror more. You just have a dumber way of doing it. That's the reality. And if we want to stop these guys, for God's sake, we got to be smarter than them. It's way past time to start doing that, including a much better effort from our intelligence community.